talk about him. He had a fantastic moment out of a lot of them to pick through tonight, but he was bringing up Belfast potential as well. How exciting would that be?
It'd be really good, you know. I mean, we could have had him on the last card there. We went to Belfast, he would have done really well. Unfortunately, the deal just wasn't done at that time, but we were still in conversation with him then. Honestly, I think no matter where we take Paul Hughes, he's going to be a star. You know, we could take him to London. He did really well for Cage Warriors there. He had loads of people travelling for him. Obviously, Belfast will be incredible, but Paul Hughes' star is going to grow very quickly, and it'll get to the stage where, you know, people will be demanding we bring him back to Ireland because they want to see him fight on home soil again. He's going to be in demand around the world, much like Cedric is, you know.
You were a big fan of Paul way before PFL even was in the picture. I remember at one point you talking about, I'm not sure if it was maybe the Morgan Charrier or the fight after that, can't quite remember. How is it now from looking at these fighters from a distance to now being the boss, I guess, and signing all these incredible athletes?
I mean, it's cool, it's weird at the same time, but it's cool. The struggle is that I know that obviously Paul Hughes is a very special fighter, but I also know there are lots of other special fighters that either I've found and I haven't signed yet, or they've yet to be found. So, like, my work is cut out for me, and I'm getting the matchmaking team on it. We're going to all corners of the world because we're setting up regional leagues everywhere, so we need to be recruiting the best guys. And there is so many talented fighters, like, you know, across Ireland, across the British Isles, across Europe. I just feel like now I'm in a position where I can start picking these guys out and putting them on a stage where, like Paul, they can really shine.
Has how you view these fighters changed a lot? Like, you would have looked and watched Paul fight and enjoyed it. Like, how is it now that you're matchmaking and things? Has your approach to how you watch fights changed a lot in that regard?
I suppose it has a little bit, because in the back of my mind I've got, you know, what's right next for them. You know, I wasn't thinking about that before. I was thinking about it more from a fan perspective of who would I like to see them fight next, what would be a fun fight. Whereas now, you know, you look at someone like Paul Hughes, and the question is, what's the next test for him? Like, we're going to have to keep stepping him up in competition. Every time I speak to Paul, like, you know, away from the cameras and everything, it's always, I want to fight this guy, I want to fight this guy. He's got a list of people in his head, and he wants to be calling out all of these top names. And honestly, I know that was it was a troubling fight for him at moments. I think he needed that to show people that Bobby King was no pushover. You know, a lot of people had underestimated Bobby, and he's a very, very dangerous individual. For me, that was a performance that not only showed what Paul's capable of, but also showing that he's capable of seeing a bit of adversity in a big situation and working through it. So from this point on, we're just going to keep after it and accelerate it.
And you would have had a great view of, after he was dropped and he got Bobby up against the cage, he had the double unders, I think, and he was talking to him in his ear and stuff. You would have had a great view of that. Like, what do you make of Paul's kind of approach to, it teeters on the line of showboating, but he's able to kind of keep it contained? Like, is that something that really excites you about this fighter in particular?
So much, you know, because I mean, all week this week he's been an absolute pro. You know, he's carried this event, he's carried this moment like there was no pressure on his shoulders at all. And of course, we all knew that there was tremendous pressure, especially to validate the decision that he made to sign here. You know, that was the real pressure. Is, well, you know, were you worth the money? Were you worth the signing? And he proved tonight that he was. But even today, earlier today, as I was getting back to the hotel before I headed to the arena, and like, he was just running down the street with his headphones on. He was just in the zone. And when I see somebody in the fights, in that moment where it's really chaotic and they're smiling and they're having fun, they're talking, that's someone that's got absolute control. And it is showboating, but it's more on the Khabib side of showboating. You know, where he's got Michael Johnson's legs bound up and he's going, brother, I have to win.
That.
You know what I mean? It's scary because he's just giving you facts. And the thing with Paul Hughes, he tells everybody, I am going to be the best. I am one of the best in the world right now. And he says it like it's a fact that he believes. So we all have to believe him, especially when he keeps proving his point.
But he came in here and said exactly that. You know, I've been saying this to all these people, and so the focus is kind of laser pointed. Just before we pass on, was there any other fighters, specifically Irish fighters today, that really kind of stood out to you that you're happy to?
I mean, Derek Kelly. I've got to get what a fascinating fighter he is, and what he's going to be. Like, he's rolling through people, and it's almost like, and that's why I asked him in the post-fight interview, like you were going to show us something else, right? He had intended to strike with him, but it's just so slick, and especially when you know you've got those grappling skills, you've got those choking skills, you can clamp onto someone when you're still dry. Like, I would imagine he just knew that was done right in that moment. I feel like his star is going to really climb as well. He undefeated still, 6-0 now. Sky's the limit for him.
Excellent, thank you, Andy.
Dan, I was really impressed with the work that Bellator put into Paul this week. The videos with him in the Gaelic football grounds. Obviously, all the videos that have come out. How do you think it's gone overall? It was a big investment from Bellator and PFL into Hughes. He delivered tonight. How would you rate it overall?
I think we couldn't be more happy, to be honest. It was the right fight, it was the right challenge. He rose to the occasion, he carried the whole event very well, carried himself very well as well. This is something that we can't undervalue in these fighters, is when they can stand in front of a microphone and speak to the crowd from their heart. And we saw that with Paul Hughes tonight. He's a special fighter in and out of the cage, and I couldn't be more happy with the signing.
How difficult is it to put together these Dublin shows? I know you've people like me and others yelling at you on Twitter and all sorts. When you're balancing, the Irish aspect, but also the global audience. There was obviously a stretch tonight where maybe there's no Irish fighters on the show, and there's a bit of a lull in the crowd, but there's some really good matchups. How are you finding that balance?
That's difficult, and that's really where the Bellator product and the PFL Europe product differ slightly. I mean, with the PFL Europe product, I'm trying to find the local fighters out of Europe, but at the same time, when we go into Glasgow, for example, I want Lorenzo Parente and Kunle Lawal and Gemma Old on the card, because they represent the next generation of that city. My challenge for here is that I want to be cramming these cards with the Irish stars that are coming up, but I've got Greg Savage and Mike Cogan and Eduardo. We're a matchmaking team, so we keep each other in check. We balance each other out. They're the guys that are like, look, Bellator is an international product. We need these massive fights on the card. And I'm like, yeah, but there's loads of Irish stars we could be stacking these cards with. It's all about getting the right balance, and these guys have been doing it for a lot longer than I have. So I'm the one that's learning the craft of matchmaking right now, and I'm advising, but I'm also taking their guys' lead.
I'll try to do some rapid fire Irish MMA ones. Nathan Kelly, old Nathan Kelly, not young Nathan. He wants the US tournament. He wants that $1 million tournament. Is he ready?
He may well be ready, yeah. I mean, obviously the featherweight bracket, of course, got a lot more stacked when we acquired Bellator and we moved some of those fighters over into it. If Nate Kelly feels like he's ready for it and the global team wants to back him, then we can put him into that bracket. Personally, I would like to see him stick around in Europe for maybe another 3 fights and really test him, because that's a massive step up in competition. He's going to be in there with the likes of Pitbull and stuff, and we need to make sure that he's ready for that big step, because especially a fighter like Nate, he knows his potential, and we want to make sure that he's realising that potential at the right times in his career. If he jumps up, like we saw that a little bit with Jakub Nedo, you know what I mean? Like, I look back at Jakub Nedo and I think to myself, maybe we could have kept him in Europe for another year and developed him better, because when you put him on the global roster with the likes of Imre Kasanganay, you could see he wasn't quite ready, and I don't want that to be happening with the talent that we're growing in this region. So it's a real balancing act. I'll have a conversation with Nate to see what he wants to do, but I've got some other ideas myself as well to keep him active.
Last one for me, I have to ask, the Fight Academy Ireland's head coach, Liam Shannon, did an interview with Peter Carroll there during the week, and he was kind of saying that he's found it very difficult to get responses from PFL and Bellator with regards to getting his guys on the shows. Paul talked about wanting to bring that show to Belfast, but also to get, Fight Academy Ireland fighters on this. It's kind of like a regurgitated, constant theme that it's the SBG show. Will we see more fighters from throughout the country on these shows moving forward?
Absolutely, yeah. You have my contact details, pass it on, my email directly, and you can contact me directly and we'll get that sorted out. Absolutely, I don't want anybody to feel like they're being excluded from this, from what we're doing here, because if you've got good fighters and if they're performing well, we've got a place on these cards.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.